Hello and welcome, Marvelites, to a brand new episode of the MCU Exchange. I'm going to be your host for today. My name's Joe. With me is Charles. Sadly, Aaron can't make it today, but we'll hopefully get him the next time around again. And we're just gonna, it's our first time having a break in a long while without any new Marvel show or film,
Yeah.
which finally in July we'll get Black Widow after what, a year plus?
Yep. Yeah. Finally.
But there's still a lot of Marvel news out there, and we're gonna jump straight into it. Let's start off with some interesting rumors surrounding Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Now, the film is probably going to be one of the bigger projects, especially as it releases next year. Ties into WandaVision, according to rumors, potentially with Spider-Man: No Way Home. So we can expect a lot in that film, and now it seems that a lot more has been piling on. First, as we mentioned, WandaVision, there's the rumor of potentially Monica Rambeau, who will also be featured in the upcoming Captain Marvel sequel, now retitled The Marvels,
Mhm.
that she might have a role. What do you think about that addition?
It kind of doesn't make sense for me, other than the fact Wanda's
Mm,
there. But if she had to show up elsewhere, I guess it makes sense for her to show up where Wanda is. I'm assuming that she's after her. But yeah, it's kind of like those things where Doctor Strange seems pretty stacked.
yeah.
If not, if the rumors are true, Clea's gonna be here, brother Voodoo's gonna be here. So it kind of seems like I don't know how Monica Rambeau could possibly fit. Like it's hard for me to imagine what's her name? Rachel McAdams, Christine Palmer, even
Yeah.
fitting in that story because
True. Yeah.
she's a fucking like a hospital doctor in New York. It's like how does she fit into this large scale multiverse story? Doesn't make sense for me. But like I said, it as far as Wanda being there and her, I guess continuing that WandaVision story with Monica, then maybe.
Mm. I think she might like the thing is like with such films, especially as the MCU expands, Monica Rambeau might be nothing more than a brief cameo. It could even be like with the rumors that Tony Stark is in Black Widow, which is just an unused clip from Civil War. Could just be that as well. So that's going to be interesting to see if it could not be. It could also turn out not to be true. But and I agree. It's like I had a hard time trying to figure out how Christine Palmer fits back in the story. My hope is that maybe they use Clea as a mind. She takes over someone's mind or body, that they might combine that aspect. That could be an
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. I mean, I certainly, I guess, prefer that over just Christine Palmer
Yeah.
randomly hanging out um, with America Chavez and everyone in the multiverse. Certainly, her becoming, I guess, a vessel for Clea makes at least makes it more interesting and more in world. Because
Mm.
again, it's like I don't know how she'd fucking fit, but yeah, I wouldn't be mad if they went that route.
And if we talk about rumors, there is one character really of like a classic Marvel character that may be included. I think makes the most sense of making an appearance of some kind. That would be the all great and powerful Shuma Gorath. Would you love to see that character involved?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a fucking Marvel versus Capcom fan, I think most of us learn about Shumagarath through that game. I
Yeah.
think the larger pop culture notion of Shumagarath was definitely attached to that game. So as a fan of that game, that's pretty exciting. Like beyond the game, honestly, I don't even know what the fuck Shumagarath is about.
Hmm.
So that's how strong the imprint of the game is. But if you see a one-eyed fucking octopus monster in Doctor Strange 2, I wouldn't be mad at all.
Yeah, say I actually learned about the character through Marvel vs. Capcom at the time too. I think if I read correctly, the character has strong ties to the nexus of all realities, so
Hmm.
that could be a really interesting way. Like, it doesn't even have to be an antagonist or some kind. Just and I'm a big fan of Eldritch horror, so Lovecraft and stuff like that. So I can imagine him just existing, keeping the realities together in some way, like the gatekeeper into the madness.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting, especially with it's still being a horror themed film, how they're going to tie all that together. So hopefully we get a bit more news. Hopefully a trailer by the end of the year. I think it should release next March. So not that far away anymore.
Yeah. Very,
Uh,
very. It's only like it'll be like one sleep away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time flies now. We're having a lot. It's going to be a busy second half of year. July, we have Black Widow. September, Shang-Chi. Then I think in November, we have Eternals. And then in December, Spider-Man. It's going to be a lot in half a year. Speaking of, though, we have another horror-themed aspect. Moon Knight is currently filming, and we got our first look at Ethan Hawke on the set. Now, the set photo is not the best, but it did tease that he was walking around with a cane and kind of covering himself, which led to a lot of theories saying, "Oh, he's Dracula, or maybe he's another character, Nefaria, or something like that."
Yeah.
Um, what do we talked before about that you're more on the Nefaria theory
Yeah.
side.
For sure, because he's walking in daylight.
Yeah.
Unless they found a way to make Dracula, like I guess, bend some of Dracula's rules, then maybe. But I mean, the set photos are so weird because
Mm,
they kind of don't tell you anything other than the fact that he has a cane. Like I can't even tell what he's wearing. He looks like a fucking hobo
yeah.
in some of those shots. So Count the Fair is just like he's like Baron Zemo. He's a count. He's a he's a man of riches. So the image we saw definitely doesn't link to that. But if Nefaria is gonna be here, obviously Nefaria's daughter is Madame Mask, who we know is gonna be in Hawkeye.
Yep.
There's been a lot of speculation that Madame Mask is actually Kate Bishop's mom, Vera Farmiga.
That
Um,
would be
s-
interesting.
so if they go that route, then maybe Ethan Hawke is the brother of Vera Farmiga in the MCU,
Hmm.
and that would make so much fucking sense if they went that route,
It,
and it would be a nice connective tissue between Moon Knight and Hawkeye at least.
yeah. Because Moon Knight feels like the most disconnected of all the upcoming projects for now.
Yeah.
And that will be curious, especially like I think the only reason that Dracula is a big theory as per se is because Blade is in development.
Yeah.
And we're kind of trying to really connect these two because of the Midnight Suns and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting. I think Ethan Hawke is a great actor. I'm generally surprised he jumped on this project because I think he's more of an indie guy. I can't wait to see his performance. I think whatever character he's playing, he could be a really good addition to the MCU.
Yeah, it's hard to complain that Ethan Hawke is here.
Yeah, and Oscar Isaac, like that is a twofer for that series. So it's really rising up there on my excitement. And I love that they're really embracing the origins of the character by also having an Egyptian director. So
Oh yeah.
this is something I think some of the Disney Plus shows are doing really well, like with Miss Marvel's having the directors and the writing staff reflect the character as well.
Mm.
I think is a great trend. Secret Invasion just recently got directors Thomas Bezusha and Ali Salim, so they're doing a lot, and we're seeing this big approach on cinematic TV shows with Marvel Studios. So it's going to be
Right.
exciting to see where they go.
Mhm.
Speaking of Disney Plus shows, we have finally potentially the release date for What If, and it seems it's eyeing an August release. We don't have an exact release date yet. Charles, are you excited for the show?
Oh
What are
yeah.
your hopes for it?
I hope that because we don't know how long these episodes are going to be. It's probably going to be like 20, 30 minutes, I guess. But
Yeah,
we do not know what the implications are for the MCU with What If. Because they take
yeah,
place in other realities, it kind of seems like, oh, they kind of don't matter, in the grand scheme of things, in the prime sacred timeline of the MCU. So I am curious how they relate to that sacred timeline. Maybe these what ifs are Uatu just telling the stories of what happens. What happens if Captain America, is Peggy Carter, like how that relates to the actual timeline of the MC. I wonder how it's all gonna fit. Because we did see some of the some merch art of the Guardians of the Multiverse,
mm,
and I'm curious. I talked about it before. Is it just like an artwork thing they did just to sell shirts, or is there going to be like an actual Guardians of the Multiverse in the show where they protect the multiverse? I'm excited about that. So if the show is coming on this August, then it'd be really cool because June we're getting Loki, July we're getting Black Widow,
yeah,
August possibly What If, September Shang-Chi. So we're gonna have a stack next few months. So yeah, put fucking What If in August.
definitely. And it's exciting. I like the idea with the what if concept is the direction they're taking. I think a lot of people are saying it's going a little too far, but I think we haven't seen enough to really get a feeling for like what is the scenario. I just really hope the titles are actually what if T'Challa was what if Yondu accidentally picked up T'Challa instead of Peter
Yeah.
Quill or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I want them to go full on cheese with the titles.
They should, because the old what if titles were super cheesy.
Yeah. I remember wasn't there a what if story where like what if Spider-Man became the Punisher and something like that went
Yes, it was.
completely ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's
there
kind of
absolutely
the
was.
it's the beauty of this concept, and we've already seen a lot of leaks hinting at like Ultron when he if he won. I think there was the Party Thor, at least what he was titled. I'm
Yeah.
really curious about the zombie one. I'm having a hard time still wrapping my head around that Marvel Studios would do a Marvel zombie story. That's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, but I think a lot of fans are just fucking into that zombie shit.
Yeah,
That book came at a time where I think the Walking Dead comic was just like booming, and the zombie craze was about to kick in. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of over zombies to begin with, but I am curious
same,
how
yeah.
the zombie pandemic is gonna start in the MCU, or at least in this alternate reality of the MCU. And I'm curious how they're also gonna, because I wonder what their decision making was in coming
Hmm.
up with like why T'Challa instead of Star Lord, like why did you choose those scenarios? I hope they explain some of that in the hopefully the assembled documentary for What If.
Yeah, I love the Assemble documentary. That was such a great idea to offer insight into these projects. Like it unveiled in our theory we had, like Falcon the Winter Soldier couldn't shoot in many locations, which, was like, why do they keep reusing the same sets and answered so many questions.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that. Like, I would love to be in that writing room when you're pitching these crazy stories.
Mhm.
So that's really exciting to see.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a new trailer. My guess is we should get one probably in the next few weeks, if it is in August, because they'll probably give us a release date a few months ahead. But it's going to be interesting to see how it also ties together. If it potentially tying into the Multiverse of Madness, because Doctor Strange had a very strong presence in the trailer, the last one we saw.
Hmm.
So it's going to be interesting. Um, and speaking of the big connections across everything, with Loki coming up and having a lot to do with the TVA, time being the focal point, with hints at Kang having influence in that series. But we know that he's definitely in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. There starts now the news that a young female lead is being cast at the age between 10 to 12 for that film. Uh, do you have maybe what are your thoughts on them casting a very young character? Do you think we're looking at more hints but towards Young Avengers? Do you have a theory who that character might turn out to be?
Yeah, I don't have a guess because it could be anyone,
Yeah.
but it is very peculiar because you already have, teenage Cassie Lang. It kind of seems stacked, like Doctor Strange. The cast of Quantumania seems like it's going to be a stacked one. So I'm not quite sure what this 10-year-old lead character could be. It's like,
No.
how are they gonna make that fit? Is it gonna be like a is this character gonna be like a MacGuffin for the movie? Like, I don't know,
Mm,
but it is very interesting how um this movie could shape up just by the casting.
definitely. And it's funny because like the first time I heard about it, the first thought is, oh, Kang's in the film, has to be Iron Lad in some form or another. And then the casting sheet says it's female, so you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Something doesn't match up there.
Mm,
It's gonna be interesting. I think we see like with Multiverse of Madness, we have America Chavez in it, who's also a very young actress. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp doing the same thing. It's gonna be interesting, and we're seeing a lot of like a real big storyline of passing of the torch. The only thing I really hope is answered in Ant-Man and the Wasp is why they recast Cassie Lang. That is still a bit of a strange decision in my
yeah.
opinion,
Mm,
especially because they've been so focused. Like Tim Roth is back as Abomination. You don't need Tim Roth back to play Abomination. He could just be a voice character because
yeah.
he's CGI. So why bring him back but then recast Cassie Lang? So I still believe that it might be. I hope it is that it's some kind of like because of the actions of the multiverse is that accidentally the original actress is replaced with a new one, and part of the story is that Ant-Man trying to get his daughter back in some way after losing her again, which could be a really interesting drama point. His daughter being in front of him, but he not recognizing her as his daughter could be a really cool story to explore in that film because we know nothing about it, so it could go any direction.
I mean, I think it's just for the fact that Catherine Newton has a following, especially
Probably.
with the young adults. I forgot
Yeah.
what fucking movie she was, but she's been in a bunch of hit teen movies. So, I mean, economically, financially, it just makes sense to get someone more famous. But I feel bad for the actress
Emma.
in Endgame. Yeah, Emma
Yeah,
Furman.
Emma Furman. Yeah.
I feel
And she
bad.
was like really excited too. Like she did a great performance in those short few moments. It's just a weird casting decision,
Yeah,
unlike what they usually do.
and the fact that revealing teenage Cassie in Endgame, that was a fucking moment.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, she grew up. No, it was an actual fucking big moment for Scott Lang and for the audience to show like, holy shit, 5 years have passed. That's what that 5 years was like. That little girl Ant Man. That's her now. She's fucking living alone. Like they made a thing out of it. So it's kind of more confusing, like you said.
Something suspicious going on. And speaking of suspicious, look at these segues today. We have some reports regarding Marvel Studios productions releasing in China. For those who don't know, so the China film registration is very, very strict. It has to go through the government and be signed off on, and they only limit how many films are allowed to release in China from the Western markets. Now, considering that China is like a million to $1 billion industry right now in the film, the second biggest worldwide, any film company is going to try to get their films in. I think the last time I read, I think only 12 films a year are allowed to release there from the West.
Wow.
Uh, Not 100% sure, but I did read that they talk about 12 years, maybe I think per half year or something. But that's not a lot. And the recent announcement announced 10 of 12 films with Shang-Chi and Eternals missing. Now, the interesting thing about that is, and for those who might not know, there's a lot of controversy surrounding Shang-Chi and Eternals. Eternals is the bit bigger question mark of them all. Chloe Zhao, the director, was Chinese born. And it seems that China was like behind her when she won the Golden Globes, but once she got to the Oscars, her name was blacklisted in the country.
Yeah.
So because they have their own Google network per se,
Yeah.
which still no one knows why. So something must have happened there. So the theory is that they don't want to release Eternals because of her connection or whatever transpired that made her get blacklisted. Shang-Chi is a little more complicated. I think here's also the cultural backlash that we see that Shang-Chi is a Asian American depiction of it. So the problem was with like Mulan, and Mulan bombed in China because they felt like it was a bad representation of their culture and sadly building up in too many cliches. Now Shang-Chi, his father in the comics was the racial character of Fu Manchu. Naturally, they replaced that character with Mandarin, but the problem is that they say Mandarin is just a different name for the same cliche. Even if the casting of Tony Leung and Michelle Yeoh, both huge stars in China, isn't making it any better. And then on top of it, both our leads, Aquafina and Simi Liu, both do not fit the Chinese beauty standards. I think a lot of Western audiences, because we're trying to focus on inclusion and expansion, allowing people of all kinds to get a voice, might be a little shocked by this news as well. But they're very, very strict in China. What do you think about this? What did you think when you read about it?
Look, I have my own personal opinions on the Chinese government because
Yeah,
how they're sort of, the Philippines and China, we have a very weird relationship
yeah.
currently, and I think it's for the worst, at least for the Philippines. It's not boding really well for us. So I have my own opinions for the government, but if I'm not mistaken, Chloe Zhao did speak against the government, which is why,
Ah, that was it. Okay, yeah.
yeah, I think she spoke some ill things about the CCP
Hmm.
years back, and it wasn't uncovered until after the Golden Globes. And once the government found out, oh shit, she shit talked us years back. Well, fuck her. That's what happened. That's how
Hmm.
the fallout started. The Shang-Chi stuff is super complicated. I mean, it's some of those things. One of those things that us, because we're not from China, we're not from the mainland. We would
Yeah.
never understand, like especially the beauty standard and whatnot. It's so complicated. It's baffling for me, even though I'm Asian.
Yeah.
Um, I do not understand it, but it is just a super complicated thing where, because I'm pretty sure Marvel Studios made Shang-Chi as mindful as possible, to
Yeah.
be sensitive and mindful, like I said, to the Chinese mythology and history and culture and society. They really went the extra mile in sort of making it work as much as they could. And the fact that it's still not enough, the fact that there's still a lot of shit um, with how the movie looks like, with how the actors look like. It's kind of unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it is the nature of trying to appeal to China. It's such an uphill battle. Sometimes you do everything you can to make it work, but they're still like, yeah, never mind. So at this point, it's kind of like I feel like if you're Kevin Feige, just make the best movie you can. Don't even think about is this
Yeah.
gonna sell in China? Because pretty sure Disney wants to earn that
That
the
extra million now.
yeah, because it's China. The China market is the biggest market in the fucking planet.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense for them to want to get into that, but it's just so hard to fucking cater to them at this point.
Yeah, and it's hard to find that balance. It's the same with like I think magic is not allowed to be shown on screen
Yeah.
if it's not given any explanation that is scientific. I think that it's good that they're not shackled by it in some regard, is that that maybe it's a chance to just kind of focus on making this film. I think especially with Shang-Chi, like this is about Asian American representation at the end of the day and embracing the culture, because both I think Aquafina and Simu Liu are from China. They're Chinese born, so it's also about this, and we see that with Simu Liu's Shang-Chi being in the United States. That's also about him adjusting to that life there. It's a hard up battle. I think also Mulan kind of made Disney's relationship with China a bit, shaky. There was a lot of controversy surrounding it. Also here locally, that it was filmed around some very, very controversial, I think like camps for a specific religious group or
Yeah,
heritage
yeah,
group,
yeah, yeah.
which at the same time, maybe this is also just a sign for Disney to think about, okay, push the market stronger here than being dependent on it. But
Hmm.
overall, it's I mean, on the one side, it's a fascinating look into how censorship works there,
Yeah.
and just get a feeling. And I agree with you, to make the best film you can. And we're far away from Iron Man 3's special milk Chinese sequence of a famous
Right.
Chinese actor.
Right. Yeah.
That was I completely forgot that until I read this and was like, oh wait, wasn't there something?
Yeah, there was. Yeah.
um, and now for our exchange, we want to talk about the big Phase 4 returning to cinemas trailer. Marvel Studios kicked off, I think, what was it, last month? No, it was this Monday. Um, with this big trailer announcing we're getting back to cinemas as we're building up to Black Panther, Shang-Chi, and Eternals. Now, the first thing is we got our first official Eternals footage. Yay, it's not a toy or a
Yeah.
promotional
Yeah.
material. And we got the official titles for Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, and Captain Marvel 2, now completely retitled The Marvels. Plus, finally confirmation that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will indeed release May 2023. Let's go through it, maybe step by step. What were your thoughts? Let's start with the Eternals footage. I know it wasn't much, but what was your thought when you saw it? Did it get you excited for it? Were you curious about it?
I mean, yeah, the fact that we're seeing some moving pictures finally is good. I'm sick of seeing the same shitty Photoshop artwork that they've been putting out on T-shirts and whatnot. It's like you can only see that, look at that for for only a certain amount of time because it's it's nothing. Um, yeah, I mean some of the shots look interesting. They're at a beach, they're at like a forest, and they're at what seems to be like a ruins of an ancient civilization. And we see Makari, we see some of her super speed and whatnot. It's okay. I like the that shot of Angelina Jolie with the sword. I think that's the coolest, clearly the coolest shot of that Eternal segment. But other than that, I am still somewhat indifferent. I just want to see like a full on
Mm.
fucking trailer for this.
Yeah, to actually know what's going on. I think we're seeing a little bit of Chloe Zhao's own, usage of the golden hour, which is just gorgeous. If
Yeah.
anyone's seen Nomadland, she knows how to use cinematography in a very interesting way. It's a stacked cast. Like that's interesting, and I'm very curious how they're gonna bring this history lesson of the MCU together. And I can't wait to see it. I'm glad we finally just got some footage. I do hope though that we get a trailer soon, because I think we're kind of tired of waiting for trailers.
Yeah.
We don't, and with Black Widow around, what I have to say is, and this is what I think is like the smartest strategy here, is that they're using this opportunity to kind of advertise everything, to advertise Black Widow instead of just giving us another Black Widow trailer in a way. So it's a clever way to kind of sneak in a little bit less footage but still promote it. So that's just in my opinion a really clever idea they're taking.
Mm-hmm.
Now next, let's talk about the subtitle reveals and just your hopes. What do you think of them, and what are your expectations? Maybe Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Strong emphasis on Wakanda Forever. After the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman, I think it's a big statement and tribute to him. What is your hope for that film personally?
Yeah, just to sort of because there's such in a tough spot where
Yeah.
it's almost like a losing battle. Like you have no choice but to just fucking continue on. Um, I hope they manage to explain T'Challa's absence well, and not like, oh, he's gone. I mean, obviously that's all you can do, but I wonder if there's any way to sort of make that work. Um, as for the title, I kind of wish they went with Black Panther Forever. I get that Wakanda
Mm-hmm.
Forever was the catchphrase of 2018. Um, so the branding and SEO of that's probably really strong, but I feel like Black Panther Forever would be more resonant, given the scenario that the Black Panthers forever. Chadwick's influence and inspiration will be here with us forever. I feel like that's the
Yeah.
thing I wanna that's the thing I want to get from that specific title. But Wakanda Forever, it's a pretty fucking strong title. It's gonna make so much money just for the title alone.
Yeah, I agree. I also would have loved Black Panther Forever, but I think the statement and the sentiment behind it. I would love to know if there was an original different title for it planned, and
Hmm.
this was more a response. But I think the meaning behind it and the connection with, because like that's what everyone thought of, and I think Chadwick Boseman was always greeted with that saying that just is kind of him living on in the film, which is a nice sentiment.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, I don't know how to feel about the title The Marvels though. That's a little odd for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's been like a week since we saw that title. I'm still kind of like, what?
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where you have $1 billion branding with Captain Marvel, and the Marvels just doesn't ring as well as Captain
Yeah.
Marvel. Like I'm sure once we get to see Kamala, once we get to see Monica in action, we'll understand it. But you know, we have nothing to latch onto with that the Marvel style. Like
Yeah.
it's a title that only us diehard fans will recognize because it's Kamala's S and Carol's symbol there. It's like, oh wow, the Marvels. It's this big thing, but to the general audience, it'll be like, huh, I
What?
wonder what that is. It doesn't.
uh
It's not like the Avengers. Like holy shit, the Avengers
yeah.
are here. But the Marvels. It's like what?
I generally there was some funny jokes like, oh, that's where the Eternals the went. Because
Oh
that was um yeah, I agree. I think Captain Marvel would have been the stronger title to continue. I would have even find Captain Marvel's or something like, or a subtitle Marvel United or something. The thing is for me is like I have a feeling that the is going to disappear at one point because the logo looks a little awkward.
Yeah.
But just imagining Marvel Studios, the Marvels is just kind of hilarious to me.
Yeah, I don't understand why it couldn't have been Captain Marvel subtitle.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, well, not the Marvels, but Captain Marvel something. Captain Marvel and Family, some shit like that. It's just so it doesn't just ring. It doesn't ring well.
I think they're going to change it. I have a feeling that that's a title they're testing out. We've seen some titles change a bit. There's still enough time until it releases. I personally hope they change it, but it's an awkward one. I think the logo as well, like Loki as a design from a logo is a bit of a mixed bag because it's just a lot of different letters stacked together. But it
Yeah.
makes sense in context once you see like the animation of it switching and changing. But the Marvels, like I like the idea of it having the S from Miss Marvel. I think that photon symbol is in there, but it's not quite as it looks patched together. Not like Wakanda Forever looked like that was meant to be. The
Right.
Marvels looks like it was a patchwork, and
Yeah.
so I hope they do approach that. We've seen Doctor Strange's logo has changed quite a bit over its production time and everything. So I think we'll see it change. Though, like the big question is, will this be a sign that we get to meet Blue Marvel? Will we get to see the return of Marvel in some capacity
Mm-hmm.
with the Young Avengers? Is this an implication that Hulkling might, be introduced as well? There's a lot of interesting questions you can put out there with
Mm-hmm.
this announcement, but Marvel Studios, please rework that title.
I agree.
Could need a little cleaning.
Yeah.
Um, and to end off, I think the big announcement, the film that should have been here probably years ago, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, releasing in 2023. We finally got our first logo. Very different. Even though it's still a Volume 3, it looks very distinctive. Were you excited when you saw that logo? Like that was our first time finally hearing that it's coming out and plus a release date?
It's okay. I'm not.
Hmm.
I've never been that crazy for the Guardians movies. Like Charles Murphy, I feel like James Gunn really put his stamp on it, and that stamp isn't necessarily something that fits my ideal vision of the Guardians. I mean, the
Yeah.
movies are great. It has a lot of heart. It's fucking funny as hell, and it's a fun time in the theaters watching a Guardians movie. But it kind of seems like, bec- like in Phase Four, there's so much stuff that I'd rather watch than maybe Guardians 3.
Hmm.
Most of it is in Disney Plus and Shang-Chi, but it's okay for me. I'm glad that it's finally happening because maybe during the time where Gunn was working on Suicide Squad, maybe he got to rethink, okay, maybe I could work on this character more.
Yeah.
Maybe I could work on Rocket. Maybe I'll work on Drax. So hopefully it turns out good because the wait has been long.
Definitely. The last Volume 2 released in 2017. Like,
Yeah.
time flies, man.
Yeah.
I hope so as well. He has hinted that he's not changing a lot on the script, probably some slight reworks. I do like that we're getting that Christmas special as well, which is still like the most baffling thing about it all, that it's happening.
Yeah.
uh, my big hope or fear is that I don't want some of the characters. Like I feel like they're kind of hinting at a lot of characters finding their end with this film.
Hmm.
I personally do not hope so. Like I'll be honest. Like I loved what they did with Yon doing Volume 2, but I'm annoyed that we never got to explore that character more. Because it just felt like a little early for him after like what movie and a half to kind of leave.
Hmm.
My big fear is that I don't like a lot of rumors are pointing to this being a very rocket heavy film, which is awesome, but also that it's not going to end well for him. So I'm like, please do not take away Rocket Raccoon. He was probably one of my favorite parts of Endgame, and I loved him interacting with everyone. So my big hope is that we get a lot more Rocket in the future. I
Yeah.
still would love to see a Rocket and Groot Disney Plus series. I think they're just a great combo, and they had some great stories to adapt. I'm excited for Guardians Volume 3. I do hope we get a new rendition of the Guardians moving forward, maybe a darker storyline focused on Guardians and stuff like that, because it is a roster like the Avengers that can change at any time.
Yeah.
And I hope that they kind of play around with that fact a bit more in future. but because I feel like our heroes are going into like the cosmic, into the Earth-based story, so it'll add some variety. But Gun, please don't hurt Rocket. Please don't.
Well,
No, I.
that's
Huh?
the character that Gunn identifies with the most. So,
Yeah, that's why I'm scared.
oh,
Though I do love the, what was it, like people wanting them to cast Lady Gaga as Layla, I think is the name of his love interest, the Sea Otter, where
oh,
it's like because everyone loved them in A Star Is Born.
yes. Oh God.
I always love that. As soon as an actor or a couple are popular in one film, they have to be in every other one.
Yeah.
It's a fun trend. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. I mean, my big question is this all still technically Phase 4? Originally, Phase 4 ended with Thor: Love and Thunder, which releases next May.
Mm-hmm.
I personally have the theory that we might not have the phases that we're used to, but I have to say I think we won't know more until San Diego Comic-Con or D23, which I think was postponed to next year. But for now, I feel like we're talking about Phase 4 and Phase 5 already. It's going to be interesting. We don't have our usual Avengers movie to end it, and it doesn't feel like we're getting one anytime soon. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And that's it for today. Any closing thoughts, Charles?
No, I'm just glad to be back to finally fucking talk about some news.
Yeah. We still have some time until Loki starts in June, so we'll see what else drops in the coming weeks. Can't wait to see what else turns up. And thank you everyone for listening. If you loved our podcast, you can always listen to our old episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you love to listen to your favorite podcast, which hopefully includes ours. And if you're ever interested, hey, check out MCUExchange.com. If you want to be up to date on the latest news, you can find Charles on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter at CFSBillionWeather.
And you can find me with @thatalbel, THATABERL, if you ever want to just find out what our thoughts are. And, well, we can't wait to see you in the next episode, and we're hoping to have Aaron back on the show. And until next time.
Bye.